Hey, what's happening? Today we are looking at the life science health system. This is one of my favorite texts of all time. It's massive. The PDF, which you can find from here, sethbalin.com/library, is 2,300 pages. So it's a big PDF, but it's entirely searchable, and there's a lot of gold in here. So we're going to be looking at the first two chapters today: Introduction to Life Science as a Way of Life and the Nature and Purpose of Disease. I'm going to try to be careful about what I say so I don't violate any of the medical misinformation policy here on YouTube. A quick intro to this text. It was written and compiled by T.C. Fry in the 80s. It is based on the work of natural hygienists Dr. Shelton, Dr. Tilden, Dr. Jennings, Dr. Graham, and many more. And we're going to get into that history in chapter 1. But what I especially like about this text is that it condenses the work of the natural hygienists over the past 200 years, compiles it, paraphrases it, condenses it, takes all that information and puts it into concise, easily readable sections. And T.C. Fry did an amazing job with that. That's his skill. His strength is to take what Herbert Shelton can say in 2 pages and say it in 1 paragraph. So if you've read Shelton, if you're familiar with Shelton, you may be familiar with these ideas as well. But we're just going to start from the beginning. Going to go through chapter 1 and 2. Future videos, I want to go through more. But there are 100 lessons here. Like I said, it's over 2,000 pages. We probably won't get through all of it. But I do have a book club where we studied this stuff. We're studying this text right now, and we're going to study other texts in the future. But let's get into it. Let's discover, what is life science? What is the foundation of this practice, of this study, of this science? Why do we do it? How do we do it? What will it teach us? So, for many people, life science is synonymous with natural hygiene. But to me, life science encompasses a little bit more than natural hygiene. Natural hygiene focuses on the physicality and the cleanliness of your body and mind. Life science incorporates a little bit more of the lifestyle, the holistic, socio-cultural aspect as well. It's just the study of all the conditions which make life possible. And I think natural hygiene exists within that as a study of health. Not just life, but health. The purpose of studying life science is to lead a joyous existence. And we don't just study this, we embody it. Continuously in this text, T.C. Fry is calling for us to embody this lifestyle, to live it, and to be the teachers of this. Science as represented today is not the warm, practical medium we speak of here. Science that we can't use and benefit by is hardly science. Life science is the exploration and elaboration of those elements and influences we can invoke to exalt our lives and being. Certain truths are applicable to our being. Studying and systemizing these truths so that we can be guided by them is our aim here. That which begets correct results is scientific. That which begets wrong results is unscientific. I like that. I also like this paragraph here. Humans have infinitely more potential for happiness and goodness than nature's simpler forms of life. We are endowed with immeasurably more sophisticated faculties. I think that's true. Humans have an amazing advantage with our brains and our bodies, our hands, the way we can communicate, our language, our tongue, our compassion. We seem to have an extra part of the brain, the neocortex, that gives us higher consciousness than other beings. And I think with that extra power comes extra responsibility, that we have to then use our powers of reason, compassion, logic, language to make the world as joyous and as healthy and as harmonious as possible. Obeying our natural instincts is part and parcel of life science. But he also says that life science is an intellectual endeavor. So it's not all instinct, it's not all intellect, it's a beautiful fusion of the two. So I like that as well. So I mentioned that natural hygiene isn't necessarily synonymous with life science, that it is a piece of it. So here he explains that natural hygiene, a life science, is that branch of biology which investigates the conditions upon which health depends, and the means by which it may be sustained in all its virtue and purity while we have it, and restored when it has been lost or impaired. So he's saying this science of natural hygiene will teach us how to sustain health, but it will also teach us how to restore it when it has been lost. And that, I think, is what a lot of people are after, is not just a cure, but a restoration. I think a cure implies sort of a quick fix, whereas a restoration implies a realignment with nature, a realignment with the conditions that were in place originally, previously, endowing us with good health. So the last paragraph on that page, natural hygiene refutes the present-day ideas that disease and ill health are inevitable, depending on chance and circumstances outside of their own control and domain. You hear that a lot with the medical industry. Oh, it's just genetics. Oh, I got cancer because my family is genetically disposed to it. Well, maybe your family also taught you certain habits, lifestyle habits that contributed to this cancer, right? I love how he refutes that idea that these things are inevitable and unavoidable. No, we can actually exercise our responsibility, our free will, and create positive effects from certain causes. Life is cause and effect. So we can get on the right side of cause and effect and create positive effects. I'm going to go through a few of these principles and practices of life science. And again, this may just fly right in the face of what we're used to being taught about health and medicine and what we're used to being taught about humanity. So let me know what you think about this. Life science holds that life should be meaningful and filled with beauty, goodness, and happiness. Life science holds that humans are inherently good, righteous, and virtuous, and that their exalted character will be realized under ideal life conditions. Whoa. So that right there flies in the face of what I've been told by many of my friends and even teachers, that humans are inherently sinful, that we're inherently evil, that we're a cancer on the earth. And I never fully agreed with that because I felt like I had this kernel in my being of goodness. I didn't know where it came from. It's there. I can't get rid of it. So how did it get there? Was I just taught that? I mean, my parents taught me love and respect and kindness. But I think humans do that naturally. I think humans have that innately inside of us. And also, what do you think the psychological effect would be between teaching children that you're evil and that humans are bad and destructive, or teaching them that you are good, inherently righteous and virtuous, and that your life will not only improve, but be exalted when you treat people with kindness and righteousness? I think even if it wasn't true, teaching children that they're inherently good is going to make them better people. Life science holds that superlative well-being is normal to human existence and necessary to the realization of the highest human ideals. Life science holds that supreme human excellence can be realized only in those who embrace those precepts and practices which are productive of well-being. Life science, which encompasses all that bears upon human well-being, constitutes the only way to realize the highest possible order of human existence. Life science alone is in harmony with nature, in accord with the principles of vital organic existence, correct in science, sound in philosophy and ethics, in agreement with common sense, and successful in practice and a blessing to humankind. Life science recognizes that the human body is a fully self-sufficient organism, that it is self-directing, self-constructing, self-preserving, and self-healing, and that it is capable of maintaining itself in superb functioning order, completely free of disease, if its needs are met. Foremost among these needs are fresh air, pure water, rest and sleep, wholesome foods, cleanliness, comfortable temperature, sunshine, exercise, constructive work, emotional poise, self-mastery, recreation, and pleasant environment. So those are some of the elements separate from the physical that are going to offer us perfect health and a joyous existence. Constructive work. Who out there is involved in work that gives them purpose and feel like they're building something, making something, contributing to something bigger than themselves? Emotional poise, that's a huge one. Poise is how you position yourself, basically. And how do we do that emotionally? That's going to affect our happiness and our health, 100%. Let's continue. Life science recognizes that humans are constitutionally adapted to a diet of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds eaten in compatible combinations while in the fresh, raw, natural state. Whoa, man, I didn't sign up for the vegetarian course. Well, if you signed up for Earth as a human being, I hate to break it to you. Actually, I love to break it to you, but you signed up for the plant-based existence. Life science recognizes that diseases are caused by improper life practices, especially dietary indiscretions. Illness proceeds from reduced nerve energy and consequent toxemia. Insufficient nerve energy arises from dissipation, stress, overindulgence, excess or deficiency of the normal essentials of life, or pollution of the body with substances not normal to it. Accordingly, recovery from sickness can be achieved only by discontinuing its causes and supplying conditions favorable to healing. That right there, that one bullet, this one, is so money to understanding the life science philosophy. Disease caused by improper life practices, especially dietary indiscretions. So it's not always diet, but it is primarily and especially that. Illness proceeds from reduced nerve energy and consequent toxemia. Toxemia means toxins in the blood, because anything emia refers to the blood. Reduced nerve energy. So anything that reduces your nerve energy. Could be lack of sleep. It could be stress. Results in the blood not being able to clean itself because the body is too busy doing other stuff and taking care of its stress or burning nerve energy just to take care of the lack of sleep that you got. And then recovery from sickness can be achieved only by discontinuing its causes and supplying conditions favorable to healing. So again, we are doing the opposite of what Western medicine teaches us. Western medicine teaches us just cut off the symptom. Just quench the symptom. When life science teaches you have to identify the cause, brother, and then discontinue that. That's the only thing, is to cut off the cause. Life science recognizes that a thoroughgoing rest, which includes fasting, is the most favorable condition under which an ailing body can purify and repair itself. I think society has been afraid of fasting for too long, and that now it's becoming in vogue again. I think that's a good thing. But just be careful, guys. Be careful. Fasting can lead to orthorexia, starvation, if you don't do it consciously and correctly. Life science, which teaches that exalted well-being can be attained and maintained only through biologically correct living practices, is not in any sense a healing art or a curing cult. It regards as mistaken and productive of much grief the idea that diseases can be prevented or overcome by agencies abnormal to our being. So that's anti-medicine right there. Consequently, life science emphatically rejects all drugs, medications, vaccinations, and treatments because they undermine health by interfering with or destroying vital body processes and tissues. And I should have said this at the beginning, but these views do not necessarily reflect my personal views or the views of the channel. I'm just sharing what life science is for the understanding of this particular science, art, practice, lifestyle, philosophy, whatever you want to call it. We're investigating what these people think, okay? My own opinions do not necessarily align with what is said here. Now, do you believe that every human has an inalienable right to have a pure and uncontaminated body, to be free of abnormal compulsions and restraints, and to be free to meet our needs as a responsible member of society? Life science believes that. It's pretty empowering. It's pretty beautiful, actually, this whole practice. Again, we are born naturally innocent and naturally good. In here, he also explains how we know this. It's the fact that we always try to present ourselves as upright people to others. right? We always try to look good in the eyes of others. We try to do good deeds in front of other people. We try to, if we lie, it's to make ourselves look good and not, and to change someone's idea of who we are because we want to look good to people. Keyword is good. We want to look righteous and upright. And it shows, T.C. Fry explains this, that it shows our knowledge that goodness is the currency on earth, that people appreciate that and they want to see it. And as hard as it is for us to align with goodness or righteousness all the time, we know it's the basis of life because we subconsciously try to present ourselves that way all the time. Organisms are self-programmed, self-directing, self-governing, self-sufficient, self-constructing in accord with their genetic blueprint. Organisms are self-defensive and preservative. Organisms are self-repairing. This is another amazingly beautiful thing that they teach in life science, which is that your body is a healer, that you already have the healing power within you, that you don't need any special prayers, you don't need any special medicines, you don't need any special ritual other than realigning and reestablishing with the original conditions that made your body healthy in the first place. Basically meeting all of your needs, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, socially. Here he goes into the history a bit. Well before the Christian era, we had Pythagoras, who taught vegetarianism, fruitarianism among his philosophy. T.C. Fry asserts that the philosophy of Pythagoras gave rise to Apollonius and the Essenes, an ascetic culture that was fruitarian and vegetarian. And they gave rise to Christ, Jesus. And there's a movement right now teaching us about this, the original origins of the Christian movement. Cam Waters just released Christspiracy, and he's been doing an amazing job teaching us about what Jesus really represents. A vegetarian, pacifist, animal liberator who's trying to teach us to live back in alignment with nature, similarly to this. Although Jesus did it in a spiritual sense, and he was railing against animal sacrifice. And you know this because of the climactic scene in the Gospels, all four of them, where Jesus drives out the money changers and the animal murderers from the temple and basically commandeers the entire temple and teaches there instead. It says he taught daily in the temple after he drove out not just the money changers, but those who sold doves, oxen, and sheep. He was against the animal sacrificial system, and he reestablished, this den of thieves, the temple, into God's house of prayer. So Jesus also taught baptism, water therapy, cleansing. And if you read the Essene Gospel of Peace, which it's debatable as to how authentic it is, Jesus is teaching fasting, parasite cleansing, vegetarianism, raw vegetarianism, righteousness, reverence, and natural living. So you could say Jesus was a natural hygienist, or Jesus was a life scientist. In the 1800s, we get Dr. Isaac Jennings. He wrote a seminal book called The Tree of Life, which is very Christian, but it also has a lot to do with natural hygiene and life science because it teaches temperance, fasting, moderation, and a love of God. I highly recommend reading The Tree of Life. In fact, I'm recording an audiobook of it. It should be out within the next year. And then we had Doctors Graham, Trall, Dewey, Tilden, Shelton. He goes a little bit deeper into those histories and biographies, but we'll quickly just sort of introduce them. All of these people teach the same thing, that self-healing is the only healing. It's basically between us and our bodies and God. Most people chase healing through adding things. What do you take when you have a cold? Oh, echinacea, golden seal, mint, ginger, turmeric, black pepper, raw milk. Everyone has their own thing that they want to take when they're sick. They think that adding a thing is going to somehow help their body heal and detox faster. But the natural hygienists and the life scientists maintain that the quickest healing and the most efficient healing comes when we stop and we remove. We abstain from indulgences. Now the body will be unfettered and free to detox. The golden rule should be our rule of conduct. That's another lesson taught in the Bible and the Gospels. Treat others how you wish to be treated. We mentioned Tilden up above. I'm going to be teaching his book Toxemia Explained in 2026 because that will be the 100th year anniversary of its publication. And what Tilden teaches in there, we briefly mentioned it, that it's not just things that we eat that can destroy our health, it's how we act. And if we act out of alignment with the golden rule, if we treat others with violence, or if we lie to them, or if we worry too much about them, or if we hold hate in our hearts for anyone, that's going to drain our nervous system energy just like you would if you overate. So thinking about not just the food stuffs that are destructive to our being, but all the other vibrational, social and mental and emotional things. We got to think about how those affect our health as well. So the golden rule, treat others how you wish to be treated, and maybe that will do more for your health than you think. So he just goes into medicine and the notion of a cure and how erroneous cures are. Medicine basically can't cure anything because it's wrong lifestyle that will bring about the effect. Right? So the only thing that can really eliminate the effect is by changing the cause. So cures do not deal with causes. But our role as natural hygienists is to identify a cause, remove them, stop doing them, replace them with something else. So medical and healing art approaches are deadly and deadened, he says. Oh, did you guys know that iatrogenic disease is the third leading cause of death in the world, or in America? It's definitely in America. It could be the world. It's definitely in America, the third leading cause of disease. After heart disease and after cancer is iatrogenic, which means doctor-caused through drugs, malpractice, overprescription, accidents in surgery. That is the third leading cause of death, is doctors. That's a fact. And I love doctors for their wanting to help the world. I love doctors for the fact that they really do help the world in the 5% of cases that are emergencies, right? Physical emergencies and injuries. We really value the doctors to help us out of those situations. But the 95% of medical visits that are sickness and disease-based, we might be better off looking to texts like this and looking to our own innate healing powers to take care of that. So this is something I've read in Shelton, and that's also in here, is that health is a condition of perfect development and a state of wholeness. So to be 75% healthy is not to be healthy, according to these guys. To be 99% healthy is not to be healthy, according to these people. It is 100% perfect health only that we should be after. A state of wholeness with no part stunted and no part in excess. And that's an important distinction too, y'all. Excess versus lack or deficiency. Excess versus deficiency. Sometimes we are sick because of deficiency. We're not getting enough of a thing. Sometimes we're sick because of excess. We're getting too much. Sometimes we're sick because of a combination of both. And that's where it can be hard for us to figure out, okay, what's my next step? Do I just simply start removing? What do I need to add in? So we do have to be cognizant of that. Beauty should reflect health. The ability to appreciate beauty is highest in humans. And humans would normally be the epitome of beauty if they lived in keeping with their birthright, that is, their biological mandate. We recognize the beauty in flowers, birds, and other life in nature, but our fellow humans, whether young or aged, whether nice or disagreeable, are for the most part in some way repulsive to our aesthetic senses. 40% of our population are repulsively overweight. That was written in the 80s, and today that number is higher. But this is one impact of the ugliness that characterizes a healthy population. So life science holds that perfect health is not only our goal, but it is and should be the norm. What if everyone was walking around in perfect health? How amazing would that be? How happy would people be? Perfect health is possible if the conditions of health are ideal. So we need to change a lot of the conditions in this world in order for everyone to start walking around in perfect health. But with our intelligence and extensive technology, we can create the conditions for healthful living. I'm going to highlight that. Practically anywhere in the world where humans live, we can. People have such a defeatist attitude sometimes. Oh, there's too much war. Oh, you can't change the system. We're doomed. The soil's already depleted. We're already running out of water. We're already running out of oil. Humans are already a cancer. There's no hope for the human race. I don't think so, bro, and neither do these guys. We can create the conditions for healthful living. Okay? You can change. You can do better. Don't believe any of this you can't garbage. You can do whatever you want. And if what you want is to be in perfect health and to have others experience that too, then start working for it. And you can do it. Don't let anyone prevent you from achieving your dreams, man. Health is normal and natural. That's amazing. He basically says, we just adapt to it. Just supply those conditions, and over time, we'll adapt to perfection. We see animals in nature being born, living their natural lifespans, and dying naturally without once suffering the infirmities of sickness. And I think the animals that we do see sickness are the ones that are involved in humans' lives, right? Domesticated animals, dogs and cats, they get a lot of cancer. They're also eating a lot of the food that we make for them. We put preservatives in them and stuff. But the animals living in the wild, in alignment with nature, they don't seem to have the same diseases that domesticated animals have and that humans have. So, in conclusion, health is a normal condition of life. It is our birthright. That's a very empowering message. Now, it may sound impossible for someone who's really sick, but I think step one might be just to increase and expand our imagination for what's possible. Okay, now we're going to get a little more in depth into the history. We mentioned Pythagoras, we mentioned the Essenes and Jesus. So interestingly, life science and natural hygiene had a big movement in the Northeast United States, New England, Connecticut, Massachusetts, in the 1800s. So Dr. Isaac Jennings came around. As his career went on, he drugged his patients less and less and saw more and more success. He basically gave his patients placebos, and he tricked them into fasting. So he would say, here, take this pill, which just had like maybe a tiny bit of bread in it or something, or a sugar pill. He says, you take this with water, but you can't take it with food. So he put them on almost unbeknownst to them, like a fasting plan. They would come back later and they'd be better. He called it the no drugging system. Okay, and I don't think it's just the placebo effect of like, oh, I think I'm healing, therefore I am. It's the fact that he said you can't take this with food. And they naturally just cut back the food or cut it out completely. The body was then able to heal itself. Now, the placebo effect, that mental idea of I'm taking something that's good for me, I'm taking something that will heal me, that also plays into it. But you actually don't even need that. Sometimes all you need is just to fast. Sometimes. And I don't know what you need because I don't know who you are. That's the thing, is you can't make blanket statements or advice for people because I don't know what you're dealing with. And I don't do that anyways. I'm not a medical professional. Jennings introduced and formulated many of the laws of life, such as the laws of action and repose, which is the necessity for activity and rest. Not just rest, but activity, meaning we got to move our bodies as much as we're going to want to rest them. The law of economy, which is how the body manages its vital energy. the laws of physiological distribution, the law of stimulation, the law of accommodation, the law of limitation, and the law of equilibrium. If these are truly laws, we should see them repeated and repeatable. And I think we do. Shortly after Jennings, we have Sylvester Graham. He blew up in the 1800s as a teacher of temperance. It was called the Temperance Movement. It's based on the Bible. It's based on eating and drinking less, right? And modesty, and what you wear, what you eat, how you speak, how you conduct your life. And at a time when medical men were advising New Yorkers to abstain from fruit and to cook their food thoroughly, Dr. Graham was advocating eating more fruits in the raw state, also opening the windows for light and fresh air and other healthful measures that were contrary to medical teachings. Guys, medicine in the 1800s was sort of like a dark ages. They were just experimenting with medicines, and people didn't seem to know much about nutrition and proper health. The next hygienist that is introduced here is Dr. R.T. Trawl. They call him Thacker, but I think it's Thatcher. It might be a typo. Dr. Russell Thatcher Trawl. He came about in the late 1800s, the second half of the 1800s. He gave a lecture in the Smithsonian called The True Healing Art. It made quite a ripple. He also published the Hydropathic Encyclopedia in 2 volumes, and I think it was 1853. And so hydropathy means water therapy. And he basically wrote every possible use for water, and he outlined most of the diseases and how to treat them with water. Trawl is great. We also had a lot of women in this movement. Florence Nightingale, the mother of nursing, or the mother of modern nursing. International Nurses Day is on Florence Nightingale's birthday. We have Mary Gov Nichols, Harriet Austin, Susanna May Dodds, Ellen White, the guiding light of the Seventh-day Adventists, who I love. She wrote this book right here called Health and Happiness. It teaches biblical health. Natural health, natural hygiene through the lens of the Bible. I love Ellen White. Everything that she says in this book is pure gold. And Louisa May Alcott, the famous author whose brother became an MD and hygienic professional. In the 1870s, when Louis Pasteur was around and introduced the germ theory and pasteurization. So when you see on orange juice or other beverages pasteurized, it means cooked to kill germs, because Louis Pasteur put forth this theory that germs are the cause of disease. Germ theory is almost synonymous with Louis Pasteur. Now, if you know about him but you don't know about Antoine Béchamp, I would highly recommend looking at Antoine Béchamp, because he was the French scientist who basically introduced the refutation of germ theory, which he says is the terrain. The terrain is everything. So if you're going to study Pasteur, please study him in context with Antoine Béchamp. And with the ushering in of the germ era came about the decline of natural hygiene. The germ era was accompanied by a lot of money, and the Rockefellers basically fronting this movement of medicine and getting involved people from the chemical companies, the oil and steel companies, which the Rockefeller owned all of that, and using the byproducts of oil, steel, and chemicals in the manufacturing process, using those byproducts as medicine. That's where we get petrochemicals from. He mentions Bernard McFadden, Dr. Herbert Shelton, Hereward Carrington, Otto Kark, John Henry Tilden, who I mentioned, who wrote Toxemia Explained, and Linda Burfield Hazard. Haven't read any of her. Much of this that we have today is based on Dr. Herbert Shelton's writings. He was very prolific. He wrote a lot. He wrote multiple volumes of what's known as the hygienic system, and is considered today probably to be one of the most authoritative figures in natural hygiene. But like I said, T.C. Fry, who wrote this text here, he took those writings and basically simplified them. He didn't really change anything. He just made it easier to read. So that's why we're looking at this health course. At the end of the chapter, there's a bunch of questions. I recommend going in and reading all of it, but we're going to skip through. I like how there's articles at the end too that sort of discuss the topics through other ways and with other examples. Here we are in chapter 2, or lesson 2, the nature and purpose of disease. And I am not making any claims about disease or about how to heal. What I'm teaching is a history and what the natural hygienists think. Now, I find a lot of value in this information, but please don't take this as offering, cure or diagnosis of any health issue or disease, because I'm not a licensed professional. And if you need medical advice or help or diagnosis, please consult a registered physician. What is disease? Look at the two parts of the word, dis and ease, not at ease. Okay, if you are uncomfortable or suffering difficulties in maintaining energies for the functions you wish to discharge, that represents some type of disease. Okay, deviation from normal. Now, he outlines two types of disease, constructive and degenerative. Now, when I interviewed Nora Lenz on dog nutrition, I asked her about this because her book goes into this as well. The two types, constructive and degenerative. I'll give you the quick spark notes on this. Constructive disease, often called acute disease, is basically your body trying to clean itself. Whether it be something light like a sneeze, that's your body trying to expel toxins from your sinus cavity, toxins or foreign particles, or whether it's an ulcer. If you have an ulcer, your body is trying to dump toxins out of a certain place in the body, and it's burning that area with acids, and it's having trouble healing because it's detoxing. That's constructive disease. Degenerative would be when any organ has begun to undergo destruction or irreversible impairment. So kidney failure, right? Any failure of an organ would be degenerative, where now the body is not warning you as much as it is just completely falling apart. So degenerative diseases come along at a much later stage. But it's important to know which ones we're dealing with, because we can deal with constructive ones, but it's harder to deal with the degenerative ones because damage has been done. Now, this first sentence is very important. Disease affects the whole body, not just a part. The specialists in medicine will have you thinking otherwise, right? The specialists will say, oh, you got a skin issue, you got to see a skin doctor and take medicine for the skin, right? The eye doctor says, oh, your vision's not well, you have to address the eyes, and we're going to give you glasses for the eyes. But if you see a natural hygienist, regardless of if you have eye issues or skin issues, they're going to address the gut, hydration, diet, sleep, stress levels, because disease affects the entire body, not just a part. So we don't have a disease here or a disease there. It's suffered all over. So what does that mean if you have a skin issue? It means probably your entire blood system is affected, right? The entire lymphatic system might be affected. And the skin might just be the overt signal of this thing. Maybe acne is signaling an excess of protein in the bowels, and that if left untreated, it's going to lead to kidney issues. Okay, so it's not just a skin thing. We have to look deeper than that. Disease is an eliminative process. The body's constantly trying to eliminate things that don't belong in the body. Okay, the body will reject anything that's irritating. And when people think that bacteria comes and infects and invades, we're going to look at it a little differently and say, well, bacteria is always in your body. You actually want bacteria in your body because that's what makes our microbiome healthy. It's a living population of diverse bacteria. And they serve a purpose. Bacteria are the cleanup crew. Picture them like janitors. They go around and they eat toxins and viruses, which are just broken down cell debris. They eat those things, and they help us just break down things in our body that need to be broken down. They don't control the body as medical people have led us to believe. they respond to the body. They respond to what we put in the body. Right? So antibiotics, just to kill bacteria, might be effective for something, but also fasting and eliminating the food for a certain type of bacteria might be just as effective, and you're also not putting a life killer into your body. Yes, antibiotic means anti-life, because bio means life. Here, he discusses the 7 stages of disease and how toxemia is the universal cause. Again, toxemia is toxic blood. He explains the 7 progressive stages of disease from enervation. So this is not even recognized by physicians as a disease. Enervation, some people call it nervous exhaustion, is a state in which the body is either not generating sufficient nerve energy or the tasks may be greater than the normal nerve energy supply can cope with. I also see enervation as like draining the battery. So lack of sleep will not fully recharge our batteries. Lack of sleep might be the first stage of enervation. Being stressed or mad at something will begin the enervation. I just imagine if you get mad, your heartbeat ramps up, you get hot, your body starts to heat up. I just see that battery going, all right, the battery level draining. That's enervation. That's the first step of disease. Toxemia would be the next stage in which, since the body is enervated, we don't have the nerve energy to clean the blood. Therefore, the toxins resulting from catabolism and from ingestion begin to pollute the bloodstream. And as long as we stay enervated, then our body cannot detox. Okay, leading to the next stage, which is irritation. So this is when the toxins in the blood start to be felt by the body and start to show through symptoms. Because you might not notice the toxemia at first, right? Our blood is naturally able to be a little bit dirty and then clean itself, provided nerve energy is available. So we can handle a little bit of toxin in the blood in the lymphatic system. But when it gets too much, then we start to get irritation, redness, itchiness. Any type of irritation would be stage 3. Stage 4 is inflammation. This is where the body starts to mobilize water to dilute an area of the body so that it could actually cleanse it and carry out any toxins or broken blood vessels or byproducts of catabolism or anything like that. Itis means inflammation. Itis simply just means inflammation. And that's why you hear it at the end of all these disease diagnoses, right? Tonsillitis, hepatitis, nephritis, appendicitis, dermatitis. Derma is skin. Itis is an inflammation. Dermatitis is just redness or inflammation of the skin. And that's why, he does discuss this later. Diagnoses are pointless. All that tells you is where the symptom is and what it looks like. For the most part, am I wrong? Where it is in the body and what it looks like. Describe it, and that's your diagnosis. Now, for a natural hygienist, diagnoses are not important to us because, as we mentioned earlier, disease is an entire body process. It has very little to do with the point at which you can see it. That's just the signal that we need to be doing something to reverse that. Okay, after inflammation, and if inflammation is left unchecked, if we're not able to detox swelling or inflammation, ulceration occurs. This occurs with an increasingly and unceasing toxic medium. This is when the acidic toxic material tries to push itself out of body tissues, okay? And it burns some of the tissue, and oftentimes it's painful. So the body can heal from this, but we got to make sure that we provide it with the necessary conditions. The process of repairing the ulceration damage is like patching up pants with holes in them. The patching up process is called induration. Induration will be the 6th stage of disease. This is where a hard tissue begins to form around the ulcer. This is a way of quarantining toxic materials. It's often called tumor formation. Induration is the last stage during which the body exerts intelligent control. Should the pathogenic practices which brought matters to this stage be continued, cells and tissue systems go wild. So at this stage, the body needs to clean, and it's probably given you a million messages and signals to do so. But do we listen to those? The true natural hygienists would listen before things ever get to this stage. The end point of the evolution of disease is cancer. It is the last stage of disease and is usually fatal, especially if the causes are continued. People sometimes ask when cancer begins. Hygienists or life scientists say that it begins with the first cold or rash of childhood. Imagine that first cold the child gets, and now you have an opportunity to help them eliminate the toxic burden that's there. Or you can continue to feed them and give them medicine and stimulate them and enervate them. And that will push the toxins further and deeper into the body and eventually progress along those 7 stages. Now, here is a very contentious idea. This goes against the Western medical system altogether. And they really don't like when we talk about this. So again, this is not necessarily what I believe. This is for history and educational purposes only. This is the most important thing that you should take away from this chapter. Decomposed cell debris is precisely what virologists and physicians are calling viruses. Broken down cell debris, cellular trash. What if that's all viruses are? They've never been observed to be alive. They don't have the first prerequisites of life. And they're smaller than the smallest living life forms. So it makes sense they would just be fragments, pieces, debris, basically just trash, broken down trash of catabolic waste. Catabolism is cell breakdown. It's very simple. Ignorant physicians regard bacteria not as our symbiotic partners in the process of combating disease, but as the cause. Why? Because they see a lot of bacteria at the scene of a crime, right? At the scene of a sickness. And they say, oh, that must be the cause. But if you saw a bunch of mosquitoes around a stagnant pond, would you say that the mosquitoes caused the stagnant pond? If you saw firefighters around a burning house, would you say that the firefighters caused the burning house? No, they showed up to help clean it up. So did the mosquitoes. And so did those bacteria. They multiplied because they had food to eat. Okay, so giving them the food that they want to eat is going to make them proliferate. Bacteria are the janitors. Viruses are the trash. That is the natural hygiene philosophy of the germ. But we live symbiotically with bacteria. A lot of my friends in the natural hygiene world say that there's no such thing as bad bacteria. You know, we always say, oh, we want the good bacteria to thrive. We want to kill the bad bacteria. Well, nature does that for you anyways. We feed our gut microbiome. We're going to feed good bacteria. And the, quote, bad bacteria, maybe they only show up when they need to. Maybe they only show up because they eat certain really bad types of things. So instead of seeing the microbiome as our enemy, we should start to see it as our friend and part of us and our symbiosis. Okay? Uneliminated metabolic waste is another name for that cellular debris that most people call viruses. Okay, he ends this section by saying that of the over 20,000 different diseases named, they're all just one. Now, I actually don't fully agree with that. I don't think that every disease is toxemia or toxicosis, because some diseases are spiritual, some diseases are mental, some diseases are emotional patterns and habits that we have that may be linked somehow to toxemia, but is not toxemia in itself. What do you guys think? Now, this section here, they go over kind of how to care for the sick and what some of the original hygienists would do. Now, Florence Nightingale, the mother of modern nursing, she would go to these hospitals in the battlefields of Eastern Europe. Okay? And she went to the rooms of the wounded and straight up just opened the windows. She would not permit drugs. She gave water. She rejected heavy feeding and, for many, any feeding at all. Okay? And surprisingly, these things were not part of the standard medical practice at the time. Okay? They kept the windows closed. They drugged the patients. They were against feeding water. And they overfed their patients. Now she comes in, basically just gives them fresh air, fresh water, sleep, care. And reading one of her books, I even learned how she would be so sensitive to the patients that she advised never speak to a patient from behind them or to the side. You don't want them to have to stretch their neck or have to look and contort their body in any way to see or hear you. Get in front of your patient. She had a very amazing holistic approach that was basic. Again, open the windows. Stop eating. Okay? And that was radical. But guess what? It worked. There's a reason why she's a legend. Now, in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, you could get kicked off of YouTube for reading this paragraph. And I don't know if that is still in effect. I'm not going to read it, but it is on the screen. But I would like you guys to finish reading this second chapter here of the life science course on your own and see what you think. Get all the details in here, and because this is probably going to challenge some of our programming that we got when we were kids, but we need to be challenging, programming that doesn't hold up. Some natural hygienists call toxemia acidosis, because toxins are acidic, and osis kind of means like a derangement. So toxemia could be a type of acidosis. Guys, if some of these words are new to you, but you also can see how they just have simple prefixes and suffixes, I invite you to go to my website, sethbalin.com/library, and you can find a document there called 101 Common Medical Root Words, How to Decipher Medical Jargon. It's only 2 pages, and it's a document I put together of root words that build the common medical and physiological diseases and diagnoses and terms. So let me show you that. So here it is, sethbalin.com/library. This is my library. I have a lot of sections on here. In health, it's just the second one, 101 Common Medical Root Words. And you can find all these root words like allo, which means the opposite of. Okay, so that will give you a term like allopathic. Anti, we know that from poker and words like antecedent and anterior, that it means in front or before or first, versus anti, which means against. Antibody, antibiotic. Here's emia. We were talking about that. It means of the blood. So toxemia, anemia, leukemia, hypoglycemia. We see these suffixes. Endo means inside. So we get endomorph, endocrine, endogenous, endogenous. If you know that endo means inside, and you know that genus means to be made or produced, endogenous means produced inside the body. We produce protein endogenously. It means made within. Oh, and here's our word genus or gene or genesis, right? Ketogenic, genetic, genes, adaptogen, even the word gender, because it all has to do with growth or generation, okay? So go download this PDF. It's only 2 pages from my website. It will help you become your own doctor and life scientist and be able to determine and break down and decipher medical jargon. Okay? Now here's an interesting part of the Q&A here at the end of lesson 2. I find no fault with the toxemia explanation of disease, but it seems too utterly simple to be for real. Do you think our clients will go for this? And Fry's answer is, I must repeat that your clients aren't interested in theories or explanations. They're looking for results. A magic carpet from a state of disease to a state of health. Just wave the magic wand of nutritional salvation before them within the context of a thoroughgoing health regime, and they'll usually follow it religiously. Your expertise will awe them, and once word of mouth has gotten around about the miraculous results your guidance makes possible, clients will flock you. Now, I find it interesting, and I can relate to this idea that people might think this toxemia explanation that everything's one disease is too simple. Because especially since we're so used to the Western medical system of everything being very, very complicated, right? And everything very microscopic and, not for the layman to understand, but to be relegated to, the high priests of science. And there is that concern that people are just not going to buy this because it's too simple. But what I would contend is that life is simple, that the truth is always simple. And that if these people want a cure so bad, and this is the best one that you can offer, and you have, experience, and you can back up showing them success stories, then they'll buy in. You as a health coach or someone offering help have to be confident, and not through blind belief and dogma of this. We don't read this and say, okay, this is true. We read this, we practice it on our own lives, and we prove to ourselves that it's true. So we don't just take this at face value. We don't just agree with everything we read in this. In fact, when I run my book club on this, I encourage everyone to find what you disagree with about this text. So I identified some stuff in this text that I disagree with, and it actually has to do with this simplistic, only one disease explanation of toxemia. But that's good. It keeps us independently thinking, and it makes sure we don't blindly fall into dogma, which so many people can do these days, especially in the natural healing world. You see people read one book, and then that's their golden calf. I mean, that's their savior, and that's their God, and that's who they think has it right, and they don't want to read anything else because they probably don't want to challenge the new beliefs that they've installed. But we're not here for beliefs. We're here for truths. And so we're looking for nature's truths. We're looking outside to nature to find truth. I think we can find it. I think it's there for us to find. So thanks for joining me in the exploration of the first two chapters here of the Life Science Health System. I'm going to go through lessons 3 and 4 next, introducing the Life Science System for Perfect Health parts 1 and 2. And again, you can download this PDF from my website. It's 2,300 pages, but it's entirely linkable and searchable, meaning if you click on this lesson 3 heading title here, boom, it shoots you back up to the table of contents. And these are all linkable. So if you want to check out why herbs should not be used, chapter 42, boom, click on it, we're there. Now I can click around to the sub chapters. Why herbs can't cure, 41.1.6, boom, takes me there. Okay, I can also use the search box, the text box. But I just wanted to show you, this PDF, this great text. It's slowing me down too bad. Sorry, I got to close out of it. Boom. All right, y'all. Cool. Well, thanks for joining me. Download the full life science course at sethbalin.com/library. You can also see a lot of other amazing text that I put up there. We got Spark notes that I've made, notes of books, full books, zines that I've written, essays. Okay, I just uploaded in the Christian wisdom section, anti-sacrifice messages in the Bible. And I'm going to give a talk on this, I think, on Sunday. The Bible's really lit me up lately. I read it all the time. I study it all the time. And I think I'm going to be giving as many talks on the Bible as I do about other health things. So I think Wednesdays are going to be radical health, and Sundays are going to be the Bible. And of course, they overlap. And let's see. I mentioned the Tree of Life. You can download that. It's 300 pages. Here's Ellen White. You can read that. That is the original Health and Happiness, the book I showed you by Ellen White. It was originally called Ministry of Healing. There's also the Essene Gospel of Peace, and there's all this other good stuff for you to check out. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Much love. Subscribe to the School of Unlearning on YouTube. I love you. Take care, and we'll see you soon.